What was the saddest fictional character death for you? Those little shoes in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Stoic the Vast. How to Train Your Dragon. Dude literally just reunited with his wife after over 15 years of being gone and spends a total of about 15 minutes with her. Cause of death, basically took a bullet in the chest to protect his son. Roy in Blade Runner. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhäuser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die. The dogs in Where the Red Fern Grows. The Iron Giant. Pops from regular show. He was the literal embodiment of good and he died saving the universe from and with his brother. He was such an innocent and friendly guy who was kind to everyone he met. I still tear up seeing the finale to this day. Edit. His last words to Mordecai and Rigby especially hurt. I know you're sad, but I promise this is a good ending. Take care of each other. Goodbye. Saving Private Ryan has two of the saddest, most brutally gut-wrenching deaths I've ever seen on screen in Wade and Mellish. Wade trying to talk the guys through his injury that goes from panic and terror to acceptance of his own death as he cries out for his mother and says I want to go home? Jesus Christ. Mellish is brutal for all the more uncomfortable and raw reasons you'd imagine. War is horrific. Young men are sent off to die and their lives are cut short for no reason. It's tragic and heartbreaking and this is one of the only movies to really nail that feeling. Henry Blake. MAS*H. The scene in the operating room. The actors weren't told about it, just called back for one last scene shoot and Radar walks in and tells them. The silence is amplified by the sounds of instruments still working. Haunting. Brooks, Shawshank Redemption. It was just so damn sad to see someone so heavily institutionalized. And honestly, I didn't even realize what was happening in that scene until after he had already carved Brooks was here into the beam. It gets me every time. Poor Jake, sad face. John Coffey in The Green Mile. Ellie from Up gets me every time. He can't see without his glasses. Littlefoot's mother's death. Fives. He was so close to stopping Order 66, but nobody would believe him. Gwen Stacy hitting the floor. People who have had threesomes. How did they get initiated? Alcohol. A Tinder match said she was out with a friend and I crassly suggested a threesome as a joke. She showed up 30 minutes later with an even hotter girl covered in tattoos. Eugene, or was great. In college me and two of my classmates were discussing about things we hadn't done yet and none of us had a threesome, so we had one. My wife told me she has been curious about what it would be like with a girl. I told her if she had an opportunity she should explore it. She ended up having some drinks and fooling around with our neighbor. After a couple of times I ended up walking in on them. It was a bit awkward for me. I saw myself out. About 5 minutes later they came and found me to make sure everything was cool. I said it was fine. They then asked me if I wanted to watch. Watching soon turned to some interaction and then the next time I was involved from the beginning. We made sure to follow rules that we all agreed to be comfortable with. It was lots of fun. Over the next year or so we had a few threesomes and things never got weird. For the first one my friend wanted to arrange it as a treat for her boyfriend. She knew what I was like, so she just straight up asked me after a couple of glasses of wine one night. It was horrific, though. Definitely wouldn't do it again with someone I'm that close to. Second one was a couple who were into swinging. They were a bit older than me and sort of hinted at it a couple of times. I was hanging out at theirs and the wife got flirtier and touchier with me whilst the husband just watched until he could tell I was cool with the idea of a threesome. That one was much better, but I'm not a fan of threesomes overall. Too many bits flying around. It's like trying to rub your belly and pat your head at the same time. First time I was actually approached by two women at a bar. It was clear they were experimenting and just kind of wanted to use me as a buffer. Second time a close friend's husband actually asked me out of the blue. He was always into it and he said I was the most trustworthy friend she's ever had. Actually ended up liking the devil's threesome more. Edit, less work. All of y'all are imagining everyone in this thread as being way more attractive than they actually are IRL. We got drunk with some other PPL for my birthday party and then almost everyone left except my wife's friend. My wife told her she's bisexual, turns out the other girl was too. Quite a lot of alcohol was involved on everyone's part. They started making out and undressing, I joined in, and the next thing I know I'm having sex with the other girl while my wife beside me is saying, how can this gift ever be topped? As far as I know it was unplanned and spontaneous, which could have massively backfired but turned out to be a great experience for everyone. Two best friends and me, accidentally book only one hotel room with a king-size bed. The rest is history. I have, two girls I knew from high school needed a ride to a bar, they invited me to join them but was actually on my way to a prior engagement and I was able to give them a ride and work just fine with my schedule. When I was finished with what I was doing they called me and they needed a ride back home but I was no longer in the area, they stated they'd make it worth my while and yeah, that's pretty much it. Once the girl I was with and her best friend and I were chilling just drinking pretty heavily. I went to the kitchen to grab a drink and when I returned to them the friend was straddling my girl in her chair tongue kissing. Was basically the hottest thing I'd ever seen in real life. I just sat down at the table and watched for a minute and then they both looked over at me and then it was on. Not my only threesome but definitely my most memorable, best sex, and easiest threesome I ever had. Me and my girl have had a couple, the last one I bought a pair of dice that had one action and one body part so everyone can get comfortable with it being that it was the other woman's first time doing it. My ex and her friend suggested it after a couple of drinks. It wasn't well communicated and didn't end well. The other time was when I was with a girl and my friend was with one, we switched girls but he left so it was just me and these two girls I don't know. It ended very well. Step 1, I reached into my wallet. OP is just trying to find a way to have one. Which cartoon character started your sexual awakening? Poison Ivy from Batman the Animated Series. Megara from Hercules. Still searching for someone like that since then XD. Rogue from X-Men. Esmeralda from The Hunchback of Notre Dame made my jaw drop. Kita from Atlantis. April O'Neil from TMNT. Edit, because people keep asking. The original. Hex Girls. Demona from Gargoyles. Yes, my therapist knows. Apparently the Esurance girl did it for a lot of people, and Esurance dropped her when she became a very popular porn subject. Frankie from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Still into tomboys. Shago in all honesty. Jasmine from Aladdin. Starfire. Misty.